As global leaders prepare to meet next month for the climate change COP27 summit, activists are going out of their way to raise awareness against increasing carbon emissions and the looming climate crises. Our next report has more. With a violin on his back and maps in his bag, UK's Dan Hodd cycles through the busy streets of Baghdad. He's headed to the COP27 climate talks in Egypt, which he firmly intends to reach without flying. Hodd has cycled, taken trains and buses and shared taxis to reach Iraq. He is en route to Sharm el-Sheikh, where the climate talks will take place from November 6th to 18th. The seasoned traveller says that pollution on the road is one of the many challenges for cyclists.
The pollution is one of the hardest parts of long-term cycling and travelling, because you're constantly exposed to exhaust fumes and things on roadsides. You know, we live in a planet that is not built for sustainable travelling. It's not built for cyclists.
According to aviation experts, airlines were responsible for 2.4% of global carbon dioxide emissions in 2019. After a drop during the pandemic, air traffic is expected to bounce back to 2019 levels by the year 2025. Hodd has pledged to avoid taking flights in an attempt to send a strong message to the COP27 delegates.
I'm travelling to the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh without flying because I'm trying to illustrate the importance with the transport sector to do more about the climate crisis.
While the Briton is cycling to showcase his rebellion, another one is doing so by swimming. Lewis Pugh, a British South African activist, swam across the Red Sea all the way from Saudi Arabia to Egypt. He made the trip accompanied by Egyptian swimmer Mustafa Zaki.
Thank you.
The activists aim to raise awareness about the effect of climate change on coral reefs. Pugh made the 123-kilometer trip in about 16 days before arriving in Egypt. He has urgently called on world leaders to cut emissions.
Science is very, very clear now. If we heat the planet by more than 1.5 degrees centigrade, we will lose 70% of the world's coral.
Experts often compare reefs to rainforests when trying to emphasize their stunning diversity of life. Reef death not only carries dire consequences for wildlife, but also for the homes, health, and livelihoods of hundreds of millions of people, including those who fish, work in tourism, and dwell on islands made of coral. Many also rely on coral reefs for protection from coastal erosion. Ahead of next month's COP27, activists like Hodd and Pugh are going out of their way to call for firm action to combat climate change. Bureau Report, WION, World is One. This year, children are going to have an official space at the UN Climate Conference. This is for the first time. While activists believe that the Youth Pavilion will serve as an opportunity to amplify the youth's voice, famous teen activist Greta Thunberg has revealed plans to skip the COP27 summit. Thunberg, who had led several climate movements in recent years, has criticized the global summit as a forum for greenwashing. She says that global climate events like the COPs are mainly used as an opportunity for leaders and people in power to get attention. Thunberg claims that COPs are usually not meant to change the whole ecosystem, but instead encourage gradual progress. The teenage activist signed a petition calling on Egyptian authorities to open up civic space and release political prisoners last week. Over the last few years, youngsters like Greta Thunberg have routinely expressed frustration over climate inaction. This includes politicians' unfulfilled promises and the lack of urgent action required to tackle the climate emergency. And even though Thunberg is reluctant to attend the summit, the COP27 Youth Pavilion hopes to give young activists an opportunity to hold climate discussions and policy briefings.
Right now is where we draw the line.
doing this. What else can we do? We've got to stop this madness, you know.
Nobody is listening to us. The messages are clear. The scientists tell us, just this last week in the news. The UN have said we're running out of time. People are dying across the world, and soon it will be our turn. So even if we here in London don't care anything about the rest of the world, we must care about ourselves. I care about the rest of the world. I believe everybody else cares about the rest of the world. And I believe that they have just got their heads in the sand because they are so busy with business as usual that they can't bear to think about the real consequences of the way we are trying to live our lives, a way that's completely unsustainable.
The government has taken our future. I want our future back. It's criminal inaction on the climate crisis. The UN say you need to act. The IPCC say you need to act. The IMF, the World Bank all say you need to act. And yet the government does nothing. What does it do? It issues new fossil fuel licenses. It says we need to drain every last drop of oil out of the North Sea. That goes against everything that all of these internationally respected bodies are telling us. And here I am, an ordinary person, having to do this. You think I like it? No. This is something that I feel is a duty that I have to do as a citizen of the UK when our government is criminal. I'm furious. And I'm devastated.